I smile because you all are happy. I also smile knowing that half of you will inevitably whine about this episode anyway. Hey, what's going on, you guys? My name is the Raptor, and we are finally getting it. Next time on Death Battle, we have the long-requested Kratos from God of War versus Asura from Asura's Wrath. Obviously, we've known this episode is coming for a little while now. It was like the third episode revealed to us on the Death Battle Kickstarter, so a lot of us have been getting really hyped for its release, and I have heard from a couple different sources that this episode will be releasing 4 weeks from now, or 4 weeks since the release of Among Us vs. Fall Guys yesterday. And that does surprise me a little bit. Don't get me wrong, this falls in line with what they said before about every Death Battle releasing every 4 weeks after the initial 4 episodes of the Kickstarter are out, and now they are all out. Although I could have sworn they said something about starting this in like late January, early February, or something like that, so I guess I was just falsely under the impression that they'd be taking a little bit of a break between the first 4 episodes and everything else, but maybe that's not actually the case. Again, take all of this with a grain of salt, but either way, I don't have any problem getting this prediction out as early as I'm getting it out. It eliminates any worry of me getting it out too late, and all things considered, my opinions on this matchup are pretty simple, so yeah, it's really no issue. So as I've done with more recent predictions, I'm going to start by listing off the advantages that I see as more obvious, or in this case, the stuff that holds true no matter how you interpret things. Kratos appears to have more formal fighting skill and fighting intelligence than Asura, along with weapons proficiency and actual quantity of weapons by a long shot. The strength of these weapons are naturally determined by the strength of the gods or the durability of the gods that he is able to kill, but that's not really what this section is for. Asura, on the other hand, appears to have more years of combat experience because he's just a much older combatant, and has a wider array of actual powers that he himself possesses. So there is some overlap with these advantages. You know, they both have high degrees of versatility and useful tools in their arsenals, and they have both perfected their own ways of combat to the point of being basically unstoppable in their own worlds. However, the rest of this prediction is going to be a little different, because a lot of people seem to be in agreement that by and large, the outcome is going to be determined by whether or not Death Battle leans heavily into lore scaling and lore statements for these characters. And while I am usually very quick to say that a debate is probably more complicated than that, even I have to admit it seems like that will dictate the most important stuff. These characters do have a few things in their arsenals that could probably counter other things that the characters have. Like, there is more specific stuff you could talk about if you want, but we're talking like Asura being anywhere from multi-star to multi-galaxy level and massively faster than light no matter how you slice it, and then Kratos could be anywhere from mountain to country level and around faster than light from in-game feats, but then at least massively faster than light and some kind of multiversal with lore. These are just rough ideas, of course. Not everyone is going to agree on scaling, but the point is to illustrate that how Death Battle interprets things and interprets what is fair to use will probably decide things. Which, frankly, I do not like at all. I find matchups to be very boring when the debate is just obvious one way or the other, and it makes my job all the harder as a predictor in an annoying way. Because I'm done doing conditional predictions. I'm not just going to say that if lore, Kratos wins, if no lore, Asura wins, and leave it at that. Like, that's stupid. I'm going to commit to one side. It's just more than a bit frustrating, you know? Like, I know a lot of people are really excited for this episode. I'm sure it will turn out amazingly. I'm excited for the production too. Just know that this kind of debate is among my least favorites, and that's what this video is about, right? Talking about the debate. But anyway, now on to the million-dollar question. Do I think Death Battle will lean heavy into lore or not? And if all you want really is just a yes or no from me and then to move on, then ultimately, I think that it is more likely that, yes, they will lean into that stuff. Now, you can probably put 2 and 2 together. If you want to leave your angry comment and leave the video, go right ahead. I hope to see you in the next one, or maybe I won't, depends on how angry you are. But if you're interested in hearing why I feel this way, I will explain all of that now. The best place to start is to think, what has Death Battle already done? What do they tend to focus on or prioritize nowadays? If this episode was coming out years and years ago, then I would be confident saying that Death Battle would not look at lore, or at least not to the degree that would push Kratos ahead of Asura. However, now that we have episodes like Skyrim vs. Dark Souls where they focus on a lot of different lore elements, or hell, even episodes like Among Us vs. Fall Guys where they look at anything and everything that the characters do or are involved with, then I see no good reason to believe that Death Battle will believe that lore is unjust here. And I know that that is really frustrating because it does benefit one character way more than the other, and likely flip-flops the whole debate, since, you know, that kind of scaling, that kind of level is really only found in God of War lore, not actual gameplay. You know, that's something that's going to frustrate people no matter what happens, no matter what kind of leniency Death Battle gives, that it's just up to that, essentially. The one way I could see Death Battle not doing this is if they say, well, since one series is heavily built on lore and the other one isn't to the same degree, it's not fair to just beef up one of these characters majorly with lore. But if Death Battle sees lore as fair to use, then that's the equivalent of them saying, well, one of these characters has a lot of scaling from what we've seen other characters do, which puts them at a high level, but the other character only has direct feats to rely on, so we'll remove the scaling for the first character. Like, do you see how stupid that sounds? Some series just use different systems of power for their characters, and we kind of just have to accept it. And I've also said this over and over again, that while debatable fights are preferable, we can't fabricate debatability by arbitrarily making characters weaker, because that's just misrepresentation, which is the main thing that should be avoided no matter what matchup you put characters in. So if Death Battle sees lore as fair to use, which it seems like they do, then they can't not include it. That's not a Kratos versus Asura thing, that's a consistency and general belief thing. It should also be reminded that lore statements and the scaling that would result from them are not the same as in-universe statements that are offhandedly said by a random character. Those require something to support it, basically 10 out of 10 times. Whether it's the credibility of the character who said it, or the feats that are in support of it, you know, all that stuff. We know all of this already. What comes out of lore, however, really is not the same. Unless there's something really weird about the series that you are looking at, lore is not an opinion, or even any sort of observational thing. It is a factual recount of things that have happened in the franchise's history, or just a factual description of the way things are and work. So aside from the story within the game actively disproving or directly disproving what is known in the lore, characters doing weaker things in the gameplay does not invalidate what the game writers are literally telling you to be true. Like, imagine trying to use this argument against true statements found by the narrator of a book. Like, I guess that's all unusable because lore. See, a lot of people seem to think that the stuff found from what they perceive from a character is the only stuff that you can use in a versus debate. And especially when we're talking about video game characters and you're literally playing as the character, like you are the character, it's interactive, then yeah, it can be easy to think that way. However, to be blunt, Death Battle is not focusing on the player's relationship or experience with a game, they're focusing on the game character, full stop. That includes what the character is confirmed to be able to do with or without the player there too. Like, I'm sorry, but the player just does not matter in this case. In many ways, lore is the game writer's method of telling the player how strong the character is or how strong their world is that you wouldn't get from gameplay alone. Lore is never meant to be a secret contradiction of capabilities, and yet for some reason people are adamant on using gameplay in spite of lore instead of in addition to it. And for some people, this opinion can vary matchup by matchup, character by character, which is somehow even more annoying. So ultimately, I don't have much more to say about how I think things will go. I could spend a lot more time talking about the characters and the specific things that they have, but when not much of it is actually that important to the outcome of the debate, it doesn't really seem the most necessary for this video. Death Battle's gonna get to that soon enough. I know this was a very different prediction from normal, but I still feel like this was the more important important stuff to talk about. And again, I don't love that aspect of this debate, but I accept it, and I'm still very excited to see what Death Battle gives us. You know, you can have your own opinions on what you think should or should not be used, and if you think Death Battle is going to do something differently from what I've said for whatever reason, then okay, more power to you. But based on what Death Battle has done before and the reasoning for doing so, I am led to believe that Death Battle will include lore for this debate, and I am inclined to put my bet on Kratos because of that fact. Maybe Death Battle will do something surprising, but I have to stick with a singular interpretation to make a prediction. So that's what I'm going with. And with all of that said, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give it a like, comment your comments down below, subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this. I really hope this episode lives up to everyone's expectations because people have been waiting for it for a long time. And trust me, I'm very excited for the production value. I do really think it could be amazing. And people are going to get offended no matter what, but that's just kind of standard issue for Death Battle. But yeah, either way, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And I will see you in the next video. Have a great day and peace out.